All right. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to our third ScrollStack community meet. Very excited to have all of you creators and want to be creators join us. Um, uh, we started the first community meet that we had back in, I believe, end of July or August. We had about 30 to 50 creators at that time, still a very engaging community at that point. We had a great conversation because apparently everybody knew each other, and we were just getting started. So it was a great time to, host our first community meet. We've almost tried to sort of do this on a monthly basis. So the next one that we had was end of September. That at that time we had close to 200 to 250 creators. We thought at that point that we had grown fairly quickly in the month and a half since our first community meet. We had a fantastic conversation where two of our creators spoke and talked about their journeys through their entire career, not just on ScrollStack, how they're bringing their perspective to ScrollStack, and how they plan to use this going forward, and what they're doing differently in today's day and age to actually be successful as a creator. And now, as we are hosting our third creator meetup, we are reaching almost 700 creators as we speak. So we are the community is growing fairly quickly, as we've said before, which makes these gatherings all the more important, because we want to make sure that this is a time not for ScrollStack to actually talk about what we are as a platform, who we are, and what we are trying to do, and all of that stuff, because it's a fairly simple platform. Everybody who uses it can intuitively figure out what this is about. But this is actually the time for creators to get together, hear from each other, and share their learnings with each other, learn from each other. That's where we are going to spend most of our time today. Like previous community meets, creators will have questions for us at ScrollStack as well. So we will make sure that we have time for that as well. And if you want to pass on any feedback to us, feature requests, sure, we will take those as well. But you make sure that you are using this time to ask questions to creators that are sharing their views today. So what we're doing differently for those who have joined us previously on other creator meets is usually we had creators speak live about their experiences. Now that we have more creators speaking, just to make it easy for everybody, we have pre-recorded videos in which they're sharing their perspectives about sort of like their creative journey and why and how they use ScrollStack. So if you want to ask any questions to any of these creators as well, in terms of how do they go about their process, whether on ScrollStack or outside of it, how do they balance different platforms, I think this is the perfect platform to ask other creators your questions as well. Whatever platform you are following this creator meet on, just ask those questions in the comments. We will make sure that we are monitoring all of those comments, and we will curate those questions and ask those questions as they come in. So with that, let's get started with sort of like a very little sort of like brief on what we've learned so far on the platform, and then we will jump into our first creator. So what we have learned in the last 3 months, and if I can distill that down to like one thing, what I would want to leave you all with today is essentially the frequency of posting. We don't have a magic answer in terms of this is how many times you should post. And like all other social media, right? So for those of you who are first timers, sorry, I should have done a quick intro about me. I'm one of the founders of ScrollStack, along with Samir, who's also on this Q&A. Before Samir and I came together to start ScrollStack, I spent 16 years across Facebook and Google, essentially building out platforms. So I have sort of like deep experience in how do platforms grow, how do you build them, how do you make them popular, etc. One of the things that I've learned, right, is there is no one key to success, which applies here as well in terms of frequency of posting. So at Facebook as well, people used to ask us all the time, how often should we post? And there was never an answer, like a single answer, because it is different for each individual and depends on their goal. The same thing applies on ScrollStack as well. As you see a lot of different creators, and you can ask creators who are going to be speaking today, who you're hearing from today as well, they have their own process, right? But one thing that we have learned, both from my learnings before ScrollStack as well as our learning on ScrollStack, is posting frequently, right? Often enough. That often enough could be one a day for you, one every other day for you, twice a day for you, depending on what goal you are trying to serve and how much content you typically create, right? But posting frequently and posting about various topics that you have expertise on or you are interested in is actually beneficial. And I'm going to lay out 4 reasons why you should post more often, frequently as well. So the first sort of reason for that is very simple, which is more content means more distribution, right? If let's say if you create only once a week, which means that people only hear from you once a week, which means that we only push your content out to our sort of subscribers on social, on scroll.in, on Satyagraha only once a week. If you produce more, then we also get to create more distribution for you. You yourself will also get more distribution as well. So I think that is sort of self-explanatory, that you should post as often as you are able to. Second reason for that is variety of content will ensure that a broader range of people are interested in what you are producing, right? So which means that, let's say you write about just one topic, right? Let's say you write like Swapnil, you write horror stories in Hindi, right? The fact that you have a variety of content that you can push out to within horror, you have different genres that you hit, will mean that you're attracting a bigger pool of people or audience who could be interested in your content, right? And if you write about more than one topic, then it's a no-brainer, right? You will eventually attract a broader set of people, and one set of people will then get exposed to other type of content that you are producing as well. The third reason is important for a lot of you who are actually thinking about paid content, right? If you eventually want to expand into paid content, if you create a fair amount of free content, that gives people an idea of what content that they are likely to pay for. So essentially, let's say let's take an example of again Swapnil, for example, right? Let's say he is creating a mix of free Hindi stories and paid Hindi stories. If we only created paid Hindi stories, then people will not know what they are paying for. But because he creates 2 to 3 free Hindi stories before he creates the next paid Hindi story, people actually have an idea of what they are likely to pay for or what could be in this paid Hindi story. So I think that's very, very important to make sure that you are also giving people a flavor of what they might, what are they likely to get if they're going to pay for your content. And the fourth thing, which is again, some people that a lot of people are thinking about this is exactly how you will figure out not just ScrollStack, but any platform, which is what works, what doesn't work. If you have a lot of content that you experiment with, that looking at stats for each of the posts that you create will allow you to know what worked and what didn't work, right? And as you know that in the hamburger menu in your ScrollStack account, you will have access to your stats, where for each of the posts, we will tell you how many people viewed your posts, right? So across, let's say once you have posted 10 or 12 things, then you will have an idea of which are the top 3 or the top 5 out of those, right? So I think that those are sort of like the quick 4 points that you guys all should sort of remember in terms of why you should be posting as often as possible, so that you are able to get the most out of the platform. Now let's move into our sort of 4 creators that you are going to hear from. The first creator actually is a 13-year-old. His name is Yuvraj. He hasn't joined us because currently it's 4:30 a.m. in California, where he lives. He is our youngest creator on the platform. He's a middle schooler who likes video games and runs a page called The FOF on ScrollStack, where he talks about his video game experiences, his life experiences, if you can imagine. And it's fantastic. For me, what I love about how Yuvraj uses ScrollStack is his use of audio and text together. It gels really, really nicely. And it's impressive how well the two format or the two content types work well together. And it makes the reading and listening, which is called Riesling could be a new term that we can invent the listening experience better. So, Karnika, if you can play Yuvraj's video, that'll be great.
Hey guys, it's me, the Foff. I've made a scroll stack, I think, around 2 weeks ago, maybe, and I really enjoyed the platform. I play a lot of video games, and this is a place where I can just share where I got stuff and how I did stuff, and my dumb experiences as a 12-year-old who is naive and not open to the world yet and still thinks that everything is sunshine and rainbows. Most of my videos about how I lost out on money and how I lose things, and they're very, very sad, you very much need to take it in. I'm very sad. I got scammed today as well. I might be making a scroll stack about that. And I think I'm going to start a second one too about stock trading. I think the platform is really, really fun because I can do pretty much anything I want on it. And I can talk about whatever I want. I can upload everything. It doesn't say, hey, you can't do this because so-and-so. Like, it's very open and free to whatever I want to do on it. And I can do whatever I want and say whatever I want, and it makes me feel a lot more comfortable instead of having to write in a journal every single day like my dad did, and it made me cringe, like, how did you ever write this much? And now I can just upload it on ScrollStack, and then sometime in the future I'll be like, wow.
All right. So that was Yuvraj. And please, if you haven't already checked out Yuvraj's work, please check him out at the fof.scrollstack.com. He's got fantastic content, very short, very quick to consume, but hits the point. So with that, what we wanted to do was essentially also bring in somebody who knows audio really, really well and just share his thoughts on how does he see the landscape evolve, how important is audio becoming for creators today in this world. So who we have with us is Rajesh Tahil. Rajesh Tahil has been part of the ScrollStack journey from even before ScrollStack started. Rajesh is the chief operating officer of Scroll, so he's seen the Scroll journey. He's also seen the ScrollStack journey, and also more importantly, he started India's very first podcast network called Audiomatic back in 2016. That he has experience in creating thousands of hours of audio content, if not more. Rajesh comes from the world of communications and media. He has 20 plus years of experience running the brands that you would all have heard of. We can always send out Rajesh's bio for people who are interested, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. With that, I'm going to throw the mic to Rajesh for him to share some context. I have a couple of questions for Rajesh from myself, for the broader group, and then we can do other questions when we do broader Q&A towards the end as well. So Rajesh, over to you.
Thanks, Ritesh. And I think you placed that 12-year-old just so that I would feel even older than I am. So thanks for that, Ritesh. I owe you one. What I thought is that sort of before we get into the specifics on how you can use audio on ScrollStack and why I think ScrollStack is a great platform for audio, I would share some perspective on sort of audio, the journey in the Indian context. I think, now whenever content creators get together, they talk about storytelling. They talk about I think the idea of using storytelling to describe your content is fairly common. But I think we tend to forget that we have a very, very, very rich history of storytelling through audio that preceded some of your generation, my generation, and some of the generations before us. And I think only because of regulatory reasons, many of us have grown up not listening to any audio besides music, but that's because we just don't have an NPR or a BBC kind of a setup in India. But very quickly, digital fills that gap. And I think the moment podcasts arrived, the moment you had access to either international podcast networks or in India, we have seen a huge uptick in audio consumption. So a couple of points about what makes audio special. I think if you're a creator audio allows, because audio is truly embedded. It's embedded in a sense that it gets embedded in your brain. And I know that it's a bit of a cliche to say that audio is theater of the mind, because it's like you draw three lines in the square and then the listener is expected to complete the fourth. But cliched as that may be, it really, really works. And if you are building a personal brand as a creator, uh, audio offers a great opportunity for you, where it is more animated, more personal, more intimate than, let's say, just text and pictures, and less labor intensive than video. And we have seen, I think, in the last couple of years, definitely now in the US, all data, like the increase in consumption levels for audio has been greater than other media, definitely in the last couple of years. Even in India, we have seen that while it was a very slow growth, after the launch of Audible and Spotify, there has been at least a minimum 10x increase in both consumption of audio and the number of creators in audio. Now, maybe this is something I should have clarified at the beginning. When I say audio here, I don't mean music, because that's different altogether. What I'm talking about is audio that may be a part of your story, interviews that you may have done, which you just used earlier to create your transcript, can actually be edited to enrich your story. Interviews that you do, or even personal opinion pieces. It doesn't even, I mean, podcast is the sort of the high end of it, which is highly edited, highly produced. But there are many forms in which you can use audio, and this is meant to be an introduction session. If Ritesh allows, at another time, we can actually do a workshop and cover some of this more in detail. But everything from embedding just a few pieces of audio to doing a full produced podcast, which becomes a part of your ScrollStack page, that entire spectrum is possible with audio, and it offers great flexibility. Uh, and It's anything that you use, because ScrollStack is a completely open platform that can also be redistributed on other podcast networks, and therefore you can get an increased sort of reach for any or all of your content. Ritesh, is there anything else you specifically would like me to cover?
Yeah, so I think Rajesh, I'm going to ask you just one question, and then we'll wait for other questions from the audience during Q&A. But while while we are having this conversation in English, right? Like, we are a country that has so many different languages, right? So, like, what are
Yes.
your sort of thoughts on the audio space and non-English content, right? Like, how are these two coming together today, right?
So,
What is the scope? What is the story here
So,
that you would?
so I can demonstrate that with a very simple personal anecdote. Okay, I have now been creating podcasts for over 6 years. Okay, we were the first podcast network in India. We launched with a food podcast with Vikram Doctor, a science podcast with Samant. We had Akar Patel doing a current affairs podcast. Uh, but the first hit, you can say, the first hit where, like, people I don't know, people who I don't buy beer for, they where they come and tell me that we heard your show and it's fantastic, etc., etc., was a Hindi show. Our second hit, which is currently, between number two, number three, number four on the Spotify All India charts, was also a Hindi show. So, and for me, that was a very humbling experience, because we thought we were creating this great content. We got the country's best creators, and we would spend hours and hours creating these episodes, but they were at best being listened to by 10,000, 12,000 people. Okay. Maybe now, with the base itself increasing, that would have been maybe 50,000 people. Okay. But with a Hindi or a Tamil or a Telugu show, that is the accessible market that you have is easily 10x of that. Okay. So it's a no-brainer. Languages, and also the thing is that with audio, see, with text, Actually, for some languages, even though I may be familiar with a Tamil or a Telugu or a Hindi or a Marathi, I still prefer reading in English because it's a pain in the ass to read the local language text. I hope I won't get lynched for saying this. But audio, because you're talking about people and accents and mannerisms, and it is much more personal. And so you can imagine, like like Amitabh Bachchan, you can close your eyes and you still know it's Amitabh Bachchan. You close your eyes, you know it's not. So language becomes only more powerful. And there is also another factor, okay, like very often we get like Audiomatic gets pitches, okay, saying that we want to do a great, like we have this great idea to do an English podcast for the for let's say the English Premier League. Okay, the thing is that if I'm an English podcast listener, okay, and I'm interested in English Premier League, the moment I fire up my podcast app, whatever it may be, Apple or Spotify or whatever, I get the world's best creators talking about English Premier League match that happened 2 hours ago yesterday. Okay, so there would have to be a very strong reason for why I should listen to two people in Warsaw or Bandra or South Delhi talking about Arsenal versus Liverpool match when I have people from Arsenal or Liverpool or London or wherever discussing that match. Whereas the moment you get into a Hindi or a Tamil or a Malayalam, the competition shrinks drastically, the access shrinks drastically, which means that that listener who wants to listen to whatever, a podcast about the English Premier League, but he wants to listen to it in Tamil or Malayalam, he doesn't have too many options. So for these two reasons, I think that language is a huge opportunity, and it is something that often we pay lip service to, and but we don't do it enough, or we don't take it seriously. But I think because in audio, the success that has come from languages is so great, and the ease with which you can do it is pretty good. I personally think that language is going to be a huge driver for both consumption and therefore for creation. Ritesh?
Got it. Excellent. Thanks, Rajesh. So people start thinking about questions that you have for Rajesh. Either you can type them now or wait till the Q&A starts. With that, let's move on. Now that we've just talked about languages, let me introduce Swapnil. So Swapnil Narendra is a storyteller and a content creator. Along with Vijendra, who spoke last week during our creator meetup, Swapnil is one of those creators who managed to find the balance between free and paid content. And he's actually convinced people to pay for his stories on the platform. So not only that he writes in Hindi, he writes Hindi horror stories that are very high quality, but he also sort of like has a paying base of users as well. So with that, let's hear from Swapnil firsthand in terms of how he goes about it, what his experience has been. Karnika, can you please play Swapnil's video?
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम है स्वप्निल और मैं हिंदी में हॉरर कहानियां लिखता हूँ। कहानियां लिखने और सुनाने का शौक मुझे बचपन से है और स्क्रॉल स्टैक के साथ जुड़कर मुझे ये महसूस हुआ है कि मैं अपनी कहानियों को ज्यादा लोगों तक पहुंचा सकता हूँ और साथ में उनसे थोड़े बहुत पैसे भी कमा सकता हूँ, which is not bad at all, I guess. So अगर मैं स्क्रॉल स्टैक के बारे में बात करूं तो मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि शायद भारत में पहली बार ऐसा हुआ है, कोई प्लेटफॉर्म ऐसा आया है जिससे मैं अपनी कहानियों से डायरेक्टली पैसे कमा सकता हूं। लेकिन पैसे कमाने से भी ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण ये था कि स्क्रॉल स्टैक से जुड़ने पर मुझे कई सारे नए रीडर्स मिले, क्योंकि इससे पहले मेरे पास और कोई प्लेटफॉर्म नहीं था जहां मैं और लोगों के साथ अपनी कहानियां शेयर कर सकूं, जहां मेरे जैसे और भी क्रिएटर्स हैं। स्क्रॉल स्टैक ने मुझे वो मौका दिया और मेरे लिए काफी महत्वपूर्ण रहा कि लोगों ने मेरी कहानियों को शेयर किया। सबसे ज्यादा सरप्राइजिंग मेरे लिए रहा जब अपनी कहानियां डालने के बाद मैंने देखा कि कुछ लोगों ने कहानियां पढ़ी और साथ ही उनके लिए पेमेंट भी की। तो मेरे लिए काफी अजीब था, क्योंकि इससे पहले मैं हमेशा B2B मॉडल पर वर्क करता हूँ। मैं एक स्क्रीन राइटर हूँ, तो मेरे कुछ क्लाइंट्स हैं जिनके लिए मैं लिखता हूँ और मेरा वही मॉडल रहता है। तो ये पहली बार था जब किसी ने मेरी कहानी के लिए इंडिविजुअली पैसे खर्च करने शुरू किए। एंड it was a really great experience to see that people are appreciating your work and are willing to pay for it. और इसी के साथ मेरा प्रयास है कि मैं ScrollStack पर हर हफ्ते एटलीस्ट एक नई कहानी डालूं, जिससे कि जो लोग हिंदी हॉरर को पसंद करते हैं और मेरे ScrollStack पर आ रहे हैं, उन्हें हर हफ्ते नई कहानियां मिलें, और यही मेरा प्रयास रहेगा.
Excellent. So thank you, Swapnil, for your thoughts. And for everybody watching and listening, Swapnil is with us on this call. So Swapnil, your questions once we start Q&A. I already see a couple of questions in the comments that Swapnil can help answer. So I will throw them to Swapnil once we do Q&A. With that, let's go to Shivranjana next. So Shivranjana is a writer who seeks to use her skills to share the workings of oppressions in the human mind. Right? Heavy, right? That's a lot. That's a very difficult task, but I think she does it beautifully. She's used the last 7 years to sort of deconstruct systemic oppression through emotional abuse within the family, which is tough to do, right? Because that's usually like the oppression that's happening within the family is always hardest to talk about, and sort of bringing that out is not easy. She also has a book called Hineni to her name in that line of work. She was also one of her early adopters, and it's great to see that she is branched out on ScrollStack to sort of multiple subjects. So let's actually hear directly from Shivranjana in terms of how she uses it, what she has to say to the wider creator community. And again, as I said earlier as well, you will have a chance to ask her any questions that you will have for her as well. So Karnika, can we please play Shivranjana's video?
Hi, my name is Shivranjana. I am the creator of 2 ScrollStack pages. One is shivranjana.scrollstack.com and the other one is called thedailypulse.scrollstack.com. So I am a writer and illustrator, and I've been doing this full-time freelance for the past 4 years now. I also have published a book, and I am somebody who's always been a self-starter and always looking out for newer ways to share my work, to connect with people, and to share my stories, largely speaking. ScrollStack is something that I got to know sometime a couple of months or 3-4 months back, which is when I was on the lookout for a platform where I could develop a new audience, because social media is highly saturated, and it is highly saturated in a way wherein there's already a certain established algorithm, which makes it difficult for a lot of independent creators like me to find an audience and find real people to connect with rather than just likes and a few comments. So which is where ScrollStack became an interesting platform for me, because also for a writer, when you see all of the interesting platforms that are there, such as Substack and Medium, these are all not Indian, and what that means is that to earn money off of your work independently makes it even more harder unless you already have a side gig or a day job that you can work with. So which is where ScrollStack, I'm enjoying the experience of sort of experimenting with an Indian platform wherein I know the people who are helping me share my work with the world, and there is a synergy, there's a creative experimentation which is fun. My stack, which I have been enjoying and which I created just 11 days back, which is the Daily Pulse, wherein I share one reading, which is a piece of writing based on tarot cards, which I have been creating and which has received a good response, and that's been an exciting experiment in kind of working on a new platform and finding new audiences, and I'm excited to look forward what all I can do with ScrollStack.
Great. Thank you, Shivranjana, for your thoughts. And people who want to follow Swapnil's work and Shivranjana's work, we will also post those links in the comments once we are done, so that you guys can go and check out their work. So the last creator that you're going to hear from is actually somebody that almost everybody who is listening and watching might already know. They are HarperCollins. So they are a major global publisher of books. They have published amazing books that all of us have read in India as well. They have a very big presence, and they've had presence for years in India. So HarperCollins India is not necessarily. I actually personally don't see them as a global publisher. I actually see them as Indian as any Indian publisher could be. So they have a very Indian soul. They actually pick amazing books for Indian audiences by Indian authors, and they do similar things that ScrollStack wants to achieve, which is they also help work of Indian publishers reach global audiences, and help global publishers work reach Indian audiences. So it was great to see HarperCollins join us on our journey of ScrollStack early on. So without me saying why they joined and how they go about their content strategy and what they get out of it, let's actually hear from two people who work on this day in and day out. So Karnika, can we please play HarperCollins video?
Hi, this is Shabnam.
Hi, this is Swati.
We're here to talk about HarperCollins on ScrollStack. And to begin with, why did we plan on having a ScrollStack page? That's because we wanted to ensure better discoverability for our great range of authors and their books.
Right, and the other thing that we really liked about ScrollStack was how intuitive the platform was and how easy to use it was, not just for the readers who were accessing it for the stories, but also for us to upload stories on. It allowed for us to play with the format, add videos, images, so that way it really worked for us and the books that we were publishing.
Right, and how do we go about planning the content? So we do it on a monthly basis. And what we try to do is we try to make sure that most of our front list goes on to ScrollStack. It's a great variety of genres, themes, and subjects that we publish across every month. So keeping topicality and seasonality in mind, we try to plot them into our monthly calendar. And the idea behind it is basically to bring that variety forward to our readers and for them to get a taste of what we have to offer in general.
Right, and that is also how we put our stories out there. So when we began, we identified 3 different kinds of formats that we'd be putting out in ScrollStack. We do long form interviews, we do opinion pieces or long form pieces, and we also do extracts from our books. What we do is, like Shabnam said, we have a diverse range of books every month that we're publishing as our front list. So we identify the book and the format that it matches best, and that's how we plan our calendar about a month to 2 months in advance.
Right. And we do keep in mind that, it's an online reading platform. So we try and keep the content trendy, topical, easy to scroll through, studded with as many visuals as possible. And it's great now that we have the option of also embedding native video. So that way, I think like the constant improvements being done to the platform itself is great for us content creators.
Yeah, and the other thing that we do keep in mind is, we are of course getting high quality content because the books we're publishing are great, and we're accessing either extracts from them, or we're asking authors to write for us or interviewing them. So already we have a great list of stories and ideas coming in, but of course it goes through a round of edits the way our books also do, which is that it goes to editors for line editing, for structural edits, and then of course it goes through a round of proofreading before we upload anything. So the idea is to make sure that we're putting out only the finest and the best content out there.
Right. So it's quality over quantity being the general rule of the thumb here, and the fact that ScrollStack allows the content to be the hero, because it is a simply laid out interface, and we try and make most of it, and that is basically what is keeping us going on ScrollStack so far.
All right. So thank you, Swati. Thank you, Shabnam, for those comments as well. So with that, we've essentially come to an end of the planned section of this. So now it's the Q&A time. So anybody who has not asked their questions, this is the time to ask your questions. So with the questions that have come in so far, let me sort of take those questions and then start asking the creators. And as more and more questions come in, we will make sure that we are distributing those across the board. So Swapnil, I think the first question that I'm going to ask you, we would love to hear sort of your perspective on it. So पवन कुमार ऑन यूट्यूब वो पूछ रहे हैं कि मैंने कुछ कहानी लिखी है, समझ में नहीं आ रहा उनको कैसे लोगों के सामने रखूं, राइट? तो स्वप्निल आपका प्रोसेस क्या रहा है जब आप ये सोचते हैं कि अब मेरे दिमाग में ये आइडिया है कि इसके बेसिस पे कहानी लिखी जाए, और वो कहानी को आप कैसे अंजाम देते हैं, कैसे लोगों को सामने रखते हैं? कि आप अगर आपके पास कुछ टिप्स हो, कुछ भी हो जो पवन को हेल्प कर सके, आई थिंक वो इट बी ग्रेट फॉर यू टू सॉर्ट ऑफ लाइक शेयर, या तो आपका प्रोसेस क्या रहता है उसके लिए।
ओके, पहले तो धन्यवाद इस सवाल के लिए पवन। उसके अलावा मेरा मानना ये है कि जब भी आप कोई कहानी सोचते हो या प्लॉट करते हो, आप ऑडियंस दिमाग में नहीं रखते हो कि ये मैं इस ऑडियंस के लिए लिख रहा हूँ या उस ऑडियंस के लिए लिख रहा हूँ। आपके दिमाग में बस कहानी होती है और वो सबसे बड़ी चीज होती है। अब सवाल आता है कि आपने कहानी पूरी कर ली है, पर अब आप इस कहानी का करोगे क्या? अब आप कहाँ इस कहानी को रखोगे? आज से मैं ज्यादा पीछे नहीं जाऊंगा, आज से बल्कि 2 या 3 साल पहले तक हमारे पास इतने ज्यादा मीडियम्स नहीं थे कि हम कहानियों, अब हमने जो अपना कंटेंट है उसको हम डाइवर्सिफाई कर सके हैं। क्योंकि ज्यादा से ज्यादा हम क्या कर सकते थे, ब्लॉग पे लिख सकते थे, फिर मीडियम आया, मीडियम भी इंग्लिश डोमिनेटेड रहा, तो हिंदी राइटर्स के लिए कोई जगह नहीं थी जहां वो अपना कंटेंट पब्लिश कर सकें और लोगों में शेयर कर सकें। blogspot.com ब्लॉगर हो गया या वर्डप्रेस हो गया, ये कहानियां देती थी। उसके बाद फिर हिंदी नामा जैसी कुछ वेबसाइट्स आनी शुरू हुई जो करने लगी। लेकिन एक बहुत बड़ा चेंज मैंने नोटिस करा इंस्टाग्राम पर, क्योंकि होता यह है कि इंस्टाग्राम पर आप अपनी कहानियों के बारे में बताते हो, आप उन कहानियों के एक्सर्प्ट्स शेयर करते हो और अपना लिंक वहां दे देते हो अपने बायो में कि ये मेरी वेबसाइट है या ये मेरा ब्लॉग है, आप यहाँ पे जाकर पढ़ सकते हो। आज से कई साल पहले तक मैं भी अपने ब्लॉग पर ही सारी कहानियां पब्लिश करता था, जो भी मैं लिखता था अपने लिए, लेकिन मुझे ज्यादा हिट्स नहीं आते थे। ऑब्वियसली मेरी कहानियों पे कम हिट्स आते थे और जो मैं ओपिनियन पीसेस लिखता था उन पे ज्यादा हिट्स आते थे। तो जब इंस्टाग्राम के साथ मैंने शेयर करना शुरू करा, मैं इंस्टाग्राम पर लोगों को बताता था कि मैंने कहानी लिखी है, आप जाके इसे पढ़ सकते हो, काफी अच्छी ऑडियंस मेरे ब्लॉग पर आने लगी। और वही चीज मैंने स्क्रॉल स्टैक के साथ देखी। अब मैं अपने ब्लॉग के साथ, अपनी वेबसाइट के साथ स्क्रॉल स्टैक का लिंक भी शामिल कर देता हूं। तो आपके पास अब कई सारे ऑप्शन हैं। आप YouTube पर अपनी कहानी शेयर कर सकते हैं, आप अपनी कहानी लिखें, ऑडियो में उसे रिकॉर्ड कर सकते हैं और शेयर कर सकते हैं। लेकिन यदि आप ऑडियो रिकॉर्ड करने में कंफर्टेबल नहीं हो, आप ब्लॉग पर ही लिखो, लेकिन आपको और मीडियम्स के साथ भी खेलना पड़ेगा। ट्विटर हो गया या इंस्टाग्राम हो गया, वहां पर आप एक ऑडियंस गैदर करो और उन्हें बताओ कि ये कहानी मैंने लिखी है। क्योंकि सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि आपको एक ऑडियंस पकड़नी पड़ेगी, बनानी पड़ेगी, उनके साथ आपको शेयर करना पड़ेगा। क्योंकि अगर आप ये एक्सपेक्ट करोगे कि आप सिर्फ ब्लॉग पे डाल दोगे या वेबसाइट पे डाल दोगे और अपने आप लोग आ जाएंगे, ऐसा मुश्किल ही होता है। तो आपका काम जितना कहानी लिखना है उतना ही ज्यादा है उस कहानी के बारे में बात करना कि मैंने ये कहानी लिखी है। फेसबुक पर लोगों को बताओ, इंस्टाग्राम पर बताओ, जितनी जगह हो सके आप बताओ और सबको लिंक दो। और सबसे बड़ी बात, सबसे लोगों से कहिए कि शेयर करो मेरी कहानी। तो मेरे ख्याल से आप इस तरह शुरू कर सकते हैं और देखिए इंशाल्लाह अच्छा निकल जाएगा सब कुछ।
Excellent. Thank you very much, Swapnil. Now, there are a couple of questions that are related to what Swapnil was talking about. So let me take those questions alongside the answer that Swapnil provided. Right. So, Gangesh Verma has asked that why should one pick ScrollStack over Medium, WordPress, etc. Right. So I think Swapnil had a very good point here. Right. So there are two answers here. So Gangesh, what I would say, right, as somebody who's like part of the team that has created ScrollStack, is I don't think you should think about this is you have a choice to make between ScrollStack and a Medium and a WordPress. Right. So somebody like Swapnil might be present on 2 or 3 different platforms, but each platform allows him to do something else. And it's possible that you will have to be on multiple platforms, right? Where I think that ScrollStack gives you more when you compare it to Medium or WordPress. One is what Swapnil and Niranjana Shivaranjana alluded to, is we are a platform that has been created with Indian creators in mind. and with that means that not only audience but languages, right? So if you look at Malayalam content on ScrollStack, if you look at Hindi content on ScrollStack, if you look at Gujarati, Marathi, Bengali content on ScrollStack, it looks beautiful. And you can find all types of content on ScrollStack. Versus if you go on Medium, not only outside of English, you can't find too many other language content, which means that it's not built for it, right? You won't have the same functionalities available. Same is true for WordPress, right? So I think that for us, that is a big thing. As Rajesh talked about, right? Medium, you cannot have native audio on Medium. On WordPress, trying to do native audio, it's not built into the platform. You'll actually have to do a fair amount of work, right? ScrollStack is a plug and play system. You can bring your audio files, go straight in, record with your phone, upload, go straight to it, right? Embeds will look beautiful. What Swapnil alluded to, which is you could be on Instagram, you could be on Facebook, you could be on Twitter. If you wanted to create content mixing these things, right? We have a fantastic creator, Nitin Goel, who runs bibliotherapy page on ScrollStack. He creates these posts with his Instagram things, and you can see how nice they look, on ScrollStack, right? So we are a platform that is built to make sure that this is where you can graduate from a lot of the other social media and actually, create a much deeper relationship with your audience that either you are building on ScrollStack or you are building on other platforms as well. A lot of other people have also asked how to get started. Simply go to scrollstack.com and we will walk you through how to get started. It's a very simple process. You can sign up within a minute and start publishing right away. So please go to scrollstack.com and you will be able to start creating your content as well. Abhishek Sharma, your question of how ScrollStack works, that will also be answered through that homepage as well. Ishan Manjrekar, who I remember he is our existing creator on the platform. He's asking, is there a way to have a sign up option added to free posts as well? Would help in forming a mailing list, even though I would like to keep my content free to access. So Ishan, yes, it is possible. When you create your post, before you publish, there is an option at the top of the post where you can choose whether it's a free post, whether it's a post that remains free, but people need to sign in to read or to view the post, and paid. So it's a middle option out of the three. If you pick that option, even to read free posts, people will need to sign in so that you can start to create a following on ScrollStack as well. So that option exists right now as well. All right, there are more question coming in. Hi Vijayendra, you have a question that is, when is ScrollStack getting a follow button? So for some reason, Vijayendra seems to have a mind reading capability where he always guesses what features we might be building, and he for the larger good, he asks those questions. So I think last time he was asking about something that we were building and we had just launched 2 weeks ago. So follow is coming soon, Vijayendra. It's something that we are currently thinking and processing, and you will have that soon as part of your ScrollStack suite of products as well. Thank you for that question. All right. What are the other questions? Shailaja is asking, my farm video is with me. I want to edit it, but I don't know editing. Will you help? Shailaja, we are not a video editing platform, but I'm sure if you do a quick Google search, you should be able to find a lot of other video editing platforms that are available for you for free. I think once you post it on YouTube or Vimeo, you can easily share the link on ScrollStack. All right. I think Ishan is clarifying his question. I don't want people to sign in the follow button. Yes. Thank you for clarifying, Ishan. As I mentioned in response to Vijayendra's question, we are currently in the process of building out a follow option as well. So you will have that soon for sure. And I think I'm glad that people are asking about follow option. Helps us prioritize this feature because we know that more and more people want it. And I think Swapnil also confirmed that he would like that as well. Praved is asking, how different is ScrollStack from Google side? Can ScrollStack give same smooth process? Hi Praved, yes, it is fairly smooth, very easy. I would encourage you to go to scrollstack.com and experience how simple it is to sign up and how quick it is to start creating your own website, your own ScrollStack page, profile, however you want to sort of go about it, and you can start publishing in minutes, if not sooner. All right. So now, as we wait for questions from the audience, I have a few questions that I'm going to start asking. If I can if I can ask a follow-up question to Shivranjana.
Hi.
Hi. So, Shivranjana, you run two different ScrollStack pages, right? One for sort of your personal thoughts, and one for your tarot card readings, right? So, what and I know there are a lot of other creators who would love to do that as well, right? So, I'm just curious about sort of your experiences of, like, having two identities per se, right? It's like, do you have any challenges with that? And if not, then like, how do you go about the process, right? Or how did you arrive at that? And sort of what was the thought process behind having two identities versus using the same account to sort of do the both? And like, just to be clear, I think it's great that I feel you have the right approach of having two identities for two different things, but would love to for the larger group to hear from you in terms of how did you go about it.
So I think the thing that I personally experienced was that a lot of the social media platforms and all content creation and sharing platforms that we have access to as a writer, or any form of creation that you want to share, I was not an early adopter for a lot of platforms. So by the time that I joined them, it was already populated and saturated, and there was very little space for independent content creation, and especially when you're a one-person army doing everything that you have to. When I first created Shivranjana, the original homepage sort of personal thought journal that I have on ScrollStack, the idea was to kind of create a branch of content that I already have on oppression and trauma and mental health and all of those things. And then I realized that when I'm trying to share too many different subjects through one stream, it overwhelms the reader. Because I mean, as a content consumer myself, if there is too many different varieties coming from one voice, sometimes it can get a little confusing, and it can lead to people losing interest in your story or in what you're trying to say. When it came to creating the Daily Pulse, I had a very clear vision as to what I wanted Daily Pulse to look like and where I wanted to go, as compared to the first one that I created, which was just playing around in experimentation. And with that, I felt, and I think I spoke to the team that we have at ScrollStack as well, and I kind of bounced the ideas off of them, and which is why I advocate for ScrollStack, because I'm not talking to bots, I'm not just emailing people, I'm talking to really real people, accessible anytime, and sharing what I feel, and then I get a feedback or an encouragement or just whatever suggestion they feel, because they're the ones managing the platform and sharing your stories with the world. So that was my process when I realized that, okay, the Daily Pulse is something that I want to make a daily tarot reading, which is a piece of writing, which, can be hope, can be just thought, whatever it is. Of course, it takes away from a lot of the work that I have already done in terms of mental health and abuse and trauma and all of those things. But this is a new voice that I'm creating. So there are two different channels which are serving two different purposes, and having a little bit of an idea on what the ultimate goal of creating a platform is, I think, what helps you in having two different streams of voice. Yeah, I hope that answers it.
Got it. Thank you, Shivranjana. That was very useful. The next question that I have is either for Swati or Shabnam, whoever wants to take this. Hey, Swati. You're on you. Perfect. Hi. The question that I've always been curious about, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know as well, is at HarperCollins, you have so much content available, right? It is, you are publishing so many books at a time. The books each of them have so much content. You have lots of authors that you could interview. So there's no dearth of content. How do you pick what to post, right? This is a problem of plenty, right? This is like going on Netflix or Hotstar and sort of deciding, what to watch, and you can never make a good decision through that process. So I'm very curious, right, in terms of how do you go about it, and and also for our creators to sort of learn, right? Because some of our creators, Swati, might have years of content that they've kept on other sites and other platforms, etc. Just hearing about your process might help them go through their decision making process a bit more easily as well. So would love to hear your perspective on how do you guys decide what to post from the large library that you have.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we did was address that problem of plenty that you're talking about. We kind of first visited that idea of what we would be putting on ScrollStack. We also have our own broadcast channel, which is the blog that Harper runs. So the first thing we did was to figure out what would go on the broadcast channel, what would go on our ScrollStack page. And the thing that we came up with was that we would be looking at ScrollStack as a way to get more readers and more viewers to our frontlist titles, which is books that we are publishing in that month, new books that we are publishing every month. Every month we have about 12 to 15 books that we're publishing across genres. So the first thing was that we separated the idea of backlist promotions from the frontlist ones. Now that ScrollStack was the place that we would be looking at to promote our frontlist titles, that's when we came up with the idea of planning our content about 1 month or 2 months in advance. So, for example, we are now looking at our January and February list for what would go on ScrollStack. The people that we're working with, all of us kind of sit down and look at the books that we have coming up in those months. We then look at the ideas and the subjects that those books deal with, and then we match the idea that we would have the article on, or the interview on, or the extract would be about, to the book that it's perfect for, and also the time that it's perfect for. So that would have to do with topicality, also things like what people would be reading around that time. Is it the festival season? Are we looking at the kind of cozy fun stuff? Are we looking at some hard political news, medical stuff? So it basically becomes about matching the right book to the right time and the format. And this takes some time, which is why we plan in advance, and then we either commission those pieces, or we get in touch with editors to send us the right the extract or the right interview, and all of this kind of takes us some time. It's a conversation that we have about 2 or 3 times to get the right pitch. We also discuss it with the editors, and on the books that I'm on myself, the editor on, it becomes a little faster. But that's how we're doing it, to make sure that everything is not all over the place, and we're planning things way in advance. So what's going out is the right piece that you would be looking at to read that time, and it'll be giving our front list a lot more exposure and visibility on ScrollStack.
Got it. Thank you, Swati. I just have one follow-up question for you as well. I know that at Harper you have Harper Hindi as well, under which you publish a large collection of Hindi books as well, and I'm sure you have that. I'm only familiar with Hindi because I only read Hindi, English, and Gujarati, so I'm not familiar with other languages. But do you have plans to sort of how do you see the language bit evolving, right? As you are looking at ScrollStack, as you're looking at Harper. I know we've had a fair amount of language conversation, but I think it's an important part of who we are as a platform as well. One of the reasons why we created ScrollStack is because we didn't see a platform that could do justice for languages as well, right? So would love to hear your perspective as a publisher, that is fairly large in English as well as in language, on how do you see that playing out? It does not have to be a ScrollStack specific one, right? Just in general.
So actually that would come under the frontlist publishing. So when we're publishing translations of the books that we already have on our list, that would be on the schedule that we'll be looking at. Now we don't publish Hindi books very often, so once in a few months we'll have Hindi titles that are coming out, and those will become a part of the list that we get ready for ScrollStack. So in terms of language publishing and publishing that we're doing under Harper Hindi, all of those books will be treated pretty much at the same in the same conversation and the same level as the books that we are looking at under our English publication list. So in terms of, we don't have currently an approach which is separate for Hindi. All our frontlist titles come under the exact same banner that we are looking at, the overall publishing program for ScrollStack.
Got it. Thank you, Swati. All right. So I have a couple of questions that have come into the question. Nitin Goel, who I had mentioned earlier, who runs Bibliotherapy, is asking, from a reader's perspective, with so much content on already on ScrollStack, can we have a library or bookmarks page where we can save posts to read later? It'll help scroll less, no pun intended, I'm assuming, and read more. Great suggestion, Nitin. As I said, we will definitely keep this in mind, and let's see what we can do for the readers as well. Right now, we are so focused, and I'm glad that you pointed this out, Nitin. We are so focused solving all of the problems for creators. We are prioritizing everything that makes creators' lives easy. But I think you bring up a great point, which is the content is increasing every day by a lot. So we should definitely get to some of these features as well. So our promise is we will start to bring these features out for readers soon enough as well, for sure. All right, as we wait for more questions, Rajesh, if we can bring Rajesh back, I have a question for Rajesh on the audio side as well. So Rajesh, we will definitely, first of all, we are going to take you up on that offer of doing a workshop on audio dedicatedly as well. So I think we will coordinate and set that up. I think this format works really well because a much broader set of people can join us. And so along the way, Rajesh, so I think I know you're deep into sort of producing podcasts, right, along the way, and then you are now doing it across language barrier as well. I think one of the challenges of audio, and would love to hear your perspective on this in terms of how to solve for it, is if it is text, if you write, Google can index it, right? So the whole SEO optimization kicks in, right? Like with audio, that's not possible yet. I'm sure, right? Like I have faith in big that Google will solve this problem.
Very good point. Yeah.
Right. So how do you get around that, right? So like, is there a mix of? So I know on our platform, right, Rajesh, just to like 10 seconds of it, which is Yuvraj, who spoke earlier, he always makes sure that there is like a text descriptor along with it as well. We have a new creator who writes under uvach.scrollstack.com. Around with it with some text and audio, but how do you solve for that, right? How do you make sure that it's covered?
So Ritesh, I mean, absolutely brilliant question in a sense that I think many people, and I speak to people from some of the bigger podcast setups, audio setups in the US and UK quite regularly now. This is something that really bothers everyone. Okay, and I think most people agree that solving this problem would take the audio category to a totally different level. Like it would be at a stratospheric level, because just imagine the ease with which, like, now most of us have some form of headphones. We are on our phones all the time. These files are incredibly light. Okay, so instead of getting your 5-minute news update in the morning, which you scroll through, it could just come and drop. You'd get an update, and the moment you were able to search it, you just follow it. It would just show up in your inbox at 9 a.m. every morning. Simple. Okay, and then you're an audio consumer for life now. Okay, so I think that so I have a 2-level answer to your question. Okay, number one, see, we have found, okay, with audio, the engagement levels and the loyalty levels are very high. So people don't flirt with audio as much as they flirt with text. And by flirt, I mean you come see the headline, you see the stand first, you read like the third paragraph, and then you move to the next thing. With audio, I think people pretty much decide in the first minute and a half whether they are in or out. Okay, and if they are in, and then they will find some way to follow you. Okay, so all the podcast apps have a follow button or a like button or whatever, and what that will ensure is that you get a notification every time there's a new episode, etc., etc. So that addresses the problem to some extent. Okay, the other thing we try and do is obviously try and make your show description as illustrative as possible of what is in the episode, so it doesn't look like, so let's say there is a Ritesh Mehta chat show. Okay, now you don't say Ritesh Mehta chat show episode 1, Ritesh Mehta chat show episode 2, Ritesh Mehta, you say this week's guest Samir Patel, co-founder ScrollStack, this week's guest Rajesh Tahil, co-founder Audiomatic. So if someone is searching for Rajesh Tahil, Audiomatic podcast, Ritesh Mehta, somewhere that shows up. So trying to resolve that problem. And the third, which comes under the purview of normal social media communication, okay, but we've started doing this much more and more now, is that you take clips, okay, and then you add the text description to the clips, and you keep posting those on Twitter, Instagram, etc., etc. And I think that then that shows up in search, so you are creating a kind of a direct association between the text that you found through search and the audio file that lay behind it. But none of this solves the real problem, and I think the real problem is now becoming too big, and someone is going to solve that problem.
Got it. Thank you, Rajesh. So with that, we are out of time as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shivranjana, Swati, Shabnam, Swapnil, Rajesh, for your time. Thank you, everybody who joined in to watch and listen, for your questions, for your time. All the creators out there, whether you are on this or not, thank you for being part of ScrollStack. We are trying to solve important problems for the pan economy, for creator economy. We love the fact that you have decided to join us early. On that, please continue to spread the word. We will try to make sure that we are solving the most important problems for you as well. As you heard today, right, people are using ScrollStack in a lot of different ways. Language is a big thing. Audio is a big thing. It's a platform, which means that you could be an independent creator or a big brand. You could use it the same way or different ways. We love the fact that there is such a large variety of content already on the platform, which means that this is solving not just a niche problem, but it's actually solving a problem for the much broader set of creators and want to be creators. Everybody who's joined today is joined ScrollStack, having heard this conversation. Welcome to ScrollStack. I'm glad that you invested the time. If you have any questions about anything, please reach out to us at support@scrollstack.com. As Shivranjana said, there are real people at the other end of the email address who actually look at your questions and try and answer those questions. You can always reach us on social media as well. We are committed to doing these creator meetups on a monthly basis. We will also do the workshops that Rajesh talked about, right? So I think the two that we will plan in the short term, one is essentially on audio. The other one will be on just writing best practices as well, since a lot of you are writers as well. And with our experience at Scroll, before creating ScrollStack, we actually have access to great writing talent who can come and share their experiences as well. So as and when we plan those workshops, we will make sure that we send the word out through our emails channels, through our social media, so that you can come and join those as well. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great week ahead, and thank you for your time, and see you on the other side on ScrollStack. Bye, everyone.